Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm the only thing separating you from lunch, so I'll try to be as brief and efficient as I possibly can. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Curtis, and to AMATS for the opportunity to speak on a few initiatives, economic development opportunities that we're working on at the airport, and I'll, of course, solicit questions at the end. So a little bit of a 101, if you will, for those of you who don't realize who we are and what we do. We are a public entity. A lot of times I get asked the question, well, who owns Akron-Canton Airport? Does anybody know? You all, the public. The public owns Akron-Canton Airport. We're a political subdivision of the state of Ohio. Through Ohio Revised Code 308, it allowed the formation of the airport authority, which allows in turn for me to be hired as the president and CEO. So interesting fact there. The other notion is that we don't collect taxes on the airport. We're a self-sustaining entity. So we are an organization that operates on zero tax dollars. Obviously we have partners with the City of Greene and Jackson Township, City of Greene of course primarily, that focus on tax revenues for airport initiatives and hangars and properties on our land. But one of the things that we're focusing on now, we're embarking on a 5-year strategic plan, and we're hyper-focused on that plan on customer service. For those of you who have traveled through Akron-Canton Airport, you know getting to your gate in 10 minutes is probably the norm, which is something that we continue to stress as far as the customer experience goes. And that translates down from the maintenance folks all the way through our partners at the airport, the TSA, the FAA, all of our key tenants are certainly part of that effort. So kudos to them and to you all who continue to travel through CAK. We're focused on that. We are looking at, with the plan, some core areas of focus in terms of system preservation, as was talked about earlier, in terms of asset management. We are also looking at, of course, customer service. We want to be a little bit more socially responsible as well. You know, how do we, whether it's a 5K run, whether it's wellness fairs for our employees, whether it's a trick-or-treat event for the local kids, you know, just something to bring the community back to the airport are things that we're focusing on. Being more sustainable, more green, as far as change out of incandescent lights to LEDs, both on the airfield and in the public environment are some initiatives that we're working on. Recycling of trash and things of that nature. And then, of course, revenue generation. So we have what we call aeronautical revenues and non-aeronautical revenues. So the aeronautical revenues are the rents and the fees that are collected, the landing fees that airlines are assessed when they land and take off out of Akron-Canton Airport. The non-aeronautical revenues like parking, like our concessions program, like our customer facility charges that we collect from the rental car companies are those revenues that we try to maximize in an effort to maximize non-aeronautical revenue that lowers the cost for the airlines to operate out of Akron-Canton. So we're always looking for the best possibilities to do that. So the more folks that fly out of the airport, more revenue, non-aeronautical revenue we collect, the airlines look at that favorably and they want to conduct service at that particular airport. So we're focused on that over the next 5 years. At the end of 2018, we finished with just shy of 1 million passengers, 930,000 passengers. We'll be a little bit shy of that this coming year. It's a constant challenge right now to continue to have the folks that are supporting the airport continue to look at CAK as that favorite airport. Obviously the business community is our core focus, but also those who are traveling and are retired from the leisure community is just as critical as well. So for all of you engineers, architects and planners in the room, a little bit of geometry. Image on the right is kind of the airport layout. We have 2 main runways. One is 7,600 feet long, the other is roughly 8,200 feet long. We have about, in terms of personnel, 30 or so operations and maintenance staff, and then 48 employees in total, just shy of 50. We have 2,400 acres on the property and outside the airport perimeter fence, which is actually larger than Hopkins Airport up in Cleveland. Control tower on site, 24 hours, and then of course customs and border protection for some of our general aviation activities. So a recent study that came out, you may have seen it, we worked in partnership with Kent State University to conduct an economic impact study, and it actually was a very favorable result, a very surprising in a good way result that we, from about 6 years ago, where we generated about $500 million of economic impact, our most recent study this past spring indicated that we're over $1 billion. So kudos to all of you, the businesses, everyone that continues to support the community from that perspective. A little over 3,000 jobs back 6-7 years ago. Now we're up above 4,400 in terms of total employment generation, and then the payroll generation and total taxes that the local jurisdictions collect have also increased. So again, a very positive impact that we have as that key community asset, your community asset. Just a couple of notes about who we operate, or who operates out of Akron-Canton Airport. We have 4 airlines. 3 are considered the legacy airlines: United, American, and Delta. United is our longest tenured carrier. They've been there since the inception, from the mid-40s, over 70 years. We have also our leisure airline, I should say, Spirit Airlines, that travels to the Florida markets. We're very excited there. If you see the blue star on the upper right corner there, IAD or Dulles, we're going to be adding that service through United Airlines. We're very excited about that partnership with United, again, the longest tenured carrier, to start service in May of 2020. So look for more information in the coming months on our website and in the newsletters that I send out. Please continue to do that. We obviously operate a lot of the major cities: Chicago, Atlanta, one stop to the globe, folks. It's, again, a lot of people don't realize that most of the destinations that we have are one stop to the international market, and I'll go into a couple of examples on how that's helped some of the corporate partners in the area. So you may have seen, if you've traveled, how many folks have traveled out of Akron-Canton over the last year or so? A predominant number of folks. Great, thank you again for supporting the airport. So you've probably seen on the south end of the facility, we've started to erect a gate modernization or expansion project. And that's in essence to replace gates that we've had. If you've flown out of Delta, or if you fly out of Delta today and American Airlines today, you go down that older section of the concourse, you go through the atrium and kind of go straight through to the back. Kind of gives you a claustrophobic feel. It's the ceilings are low, and with the columns, it kind of gives you this feeling of kind of being a little too tight for folks traveling. The gate rooms are small, the restrooms are small. So what we're trying to do is obviously modernize our facility to modern standards like other airports, not only in the country but the world. So this particular endeavor will include, if you've flown out of Spirit, with Spirit or United Airlines up at that second level where the Arby's and the Great Lakes restaurant is, we are basically replicating what you see there with more natural light, higher ceilings, wider corridors, larger restrooms. We're adding a couple of key amenities that are there that you customers have told us you want and deserve. Business lounge will continue to be there up on that second level, which is in that older area today. There's a mother's room in the older section that'll be relocated upstairs. Kids play area, and a neat feature that we're adding as well, 2 neat features actually. We're adding a pet relief area for those of you who travel with pets. Even with pets that include miniature horses. So I don't know if any of you have seen recently, maybe about 3 weeks ago or so, there was a lady traveling with a miniature horse. Don't ask me why, but that was indeed one of the pets that were allowed on a particular airplane. And in addition to the pet relief area, which is on the secure side of the airport, we're also adding a sensory room. So a sensory room is a quiet space for those folks, children and adults with special needs, whether it be autism, PTSD, and issues like that, challenges like that folks have. So it's just a quiet space for them to relax before they get on their flight. And we're probably only the 3rd airport in the country that will have a sensory room in place by this time next year. So we're very excited about the opportunity. We'll work with Culture City, who's an organization, a national organization that we're working with. So we're excited about that. Again, those older gates were designed to accommodate the old DC-6s, as you see in the images there. And again, we're confident in the region. You know, obviously with building any project, you take some level of risk. You want to make sure that we're prepared for the future, for future growth, and we want to be in that position where we're not behind the 8 ball when it comes to air service. Just a couple of images and renderings of what that space will look like. The upper right image is the future business lounge. You can kind of see off to the left of that upper image, the kids' play area. The sensory room will be in that same vicinity. Again, wider corridors, a more modern look and appeal to you all, our customers. And then on the lower left is kind of that snapshot of the concourse. Wider corridors again. We'll have all the plugins. We'll have Wi-Fi stations as well for you to charge your devices. Again, providing those amenities that modern airports should have for you all. So of course, when we look at airports in general, we love to think that they enhance communities, not only for the business traveler, but also for the common everyday traveler. So there's a couple of things I want to chat about there, as well as economic development. An interesting fact here is that if you draw a circle, a 90-minute drive time circle around Akron-Canton Airport, compare that to a 90-minute drive time around Cleveland, we actually have a denser population, the Akron-Canton area, than does Cleveland. So it's 4.7 versus 4.3. Not a lot of people know that. So I just wanted to point out that neat statistic there as well. Community offerings. Again, we are constantly working on attracting new air service. So when it comes to working with our hospitality partners, the local businesses, we offer annual business travel forums. I see Joyce DeMio here in the audience. Joyce, if you can raise your hand, she's one of our great partners and works with us to get the corporate travel folks at the airport and working with the airlines to, again, attract new air service. The ladies up on the left were part of a travel advisory board that traveled to Houston that was partly was successful for the Houston flight that we had, which I'll touch upon in a little bit. We also offer things like TSA PreCheck. We have an enrollment coming up within 3 weeks or so? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So for those of you who don't have TSA PreCheck, please come on down to the airport. It's free. It's just, you just appear, and might be a little bit of a line, but as long as you sign up and don't have PreCheck, you're good to go there. So please come on down. Global entry, we offered in the past, but working with the with Customs and Border Protection with global entry right now, we'll probably have that sometime next year. Right now, their Customs and Border Protection are focused on other issues in the country, so we'll focus on that next year. And working with our partners, and in the case on the upper right there, we have a parents tour for working with some of our carriers, in this case Spirit Airlines, to kind of give expected parents, not only moms but dads as well, what that experience is like going through the checkpoints, what they can and can't bring through airport security. TSA is always a helpful team member when it comes to that. We also have, for the younger crowd, we also have some items that might be considered pretty cool. And on the upper left image, we have a 360 rendering on our website of what the airfield looks like. Kind of gives that perspective, full 360 view. We work with our airline partners to give away airline tickets through contests, whether it's at the 5K or other events like that, wellness fairs and the like. And then we have this past Saturday, I don't know if there were maybe a few of you that participated in our 5K run, which was, we had about 1,500 people show up, very well attended event. We were up against several other 5Ks going on and the Akron Marathon the week prior, but we had a pretty good attendance. And all proceeds, we had about close to $9,000 that we split amongst the MAPS Air Museum and the Akron Children's Hospital. So all of the proceeds went to very worthy causes. And we'll look to continue to do this on an annual basis. So we're always constantly working on opportunities for economic development. This is just a small sample of some of the entities, organizations that we continue to work with, whether it's my involvement on the Technical Advisory Committee with AMATS, some of the other issues that we're working on to attract new air service. Summit County has been a great partner, the City of Green, of course, where the airport resides in, primarily, and some of these other folks. The tourism bureaus, Akron Summit CVB, as well as Visit Canton, have been great partners to work with on various initiatives to, again, attract air service, attract new development. We have 2 industrial parks, Port Green, Port Jackson, you may have heard about, so we're in constant discussions with Summit County, the City of Green, on opportunities, whether it's cold food storage, whether it's spec buildings, things like that, with various entities. So we're very optimistic about that. You know, it's moving into 2020. It's how do we promote those areas? How do we promote available tenant spaces in the building as well, in the terminal environment? We're home, the area in general. You can see the Akron-Canton Airport logo. So north of us and south of us, some major Fortune 500 companies on the general area. So whenever we're talking to our airline partners, this is a slide that we love to promote. You know, whether it's Timken, Gojo, First Energy, Goodyear, again, the big name companies that do a lot of travel. And a lot of these folks, you know, we have, again, through Joyce and some of her efforts and our team's efforts, you know, we have discussions with them. We collect a lot of their travel data. Where are they going to? What are their ultimate destinations? And it might not necessarily be a destination that we fly to today. Let's say it's to somewhere somewhere in Colorado, somewhere in Texas that they eventually want to go to. But if they're using our airport to connect there, that's the data that we collect from, to show to the airlines that those ultimate destinations direct for a future potential flight would be profitable for them, and obviously for you all that need to travel through our airport, or that choose to travel through our airport. So again, a lot of conversations with these folks. They've been wonderful partners, giving us a lot of key information that we take to the airlines. And they, again, and one of the points there is they choose to travel closest to home. So again, having that opportunity is key. We try to make it affordable for local and medium-sized businesses, as you see here as well. Whether it's Wooster, Shears, others north and south of the airport. Again, making sure that those medium to small businesses also provide us with their information if they're traveling quite a bit through our airport. We want to make it as convenient for them as possible to do so. Number of hospitals in the area, as you all know, Akron Children's, Altman to the south. Again, just some statistics on the number of beds and size of the hospital. So we, again, similar to the various manufacturing and technological businesses, we're also talking to healthcare, we're talking to folks in higher education about potential travel trends to, again, further the cause for a potential route direct that we currently don't serve today. In addition to the businesses, ultimately, we also want to cater to the leisure traveler, right? You know, this is more than ever today, you're able to get in a car, or get on a flight, I should say, rather than get in a car and drive down to Florida. You can get on an aircraft and fly down to Florida, you know, for $59 one way with a family of 4, which is a lot more affordable, a lot quicker, obviously, than taking the van down to Florida. So more than ever, we want to make sure that we continue to provide that atmosphere for our leisure travelers, just as important as the business traveler. So we, again, are also looking to make impacts, not only with trying to attract new air service, but also, again, as I mentioned earlier, with our team working with corporate travel companies and our partners in the hospitality industry. So this is an example of how 2 flights, 2 destinations from Akron-Canton were successful, and I'll go into a little bit how we made that so. So you can't really, I don't expect you to see the destinations there, but the flight from Akron-Canton to Houston, which is kind of that splatter toward the middle there, right here, allowed folks that work for Bridgestone to get to South America, as you see there, allowed for Smuckers to get to the West Coast, and for Goodyear to get to the Far East. In a similar vein, the service to Newark Airport, to the right there, allows the Diebols, the Signets, and the Timkins to get to Europe and beyond. So just a couple of examples with the information that those companies provide to us that we share with the airlines as far as where folks want to fly to has been very successful and instrumental in acquiring that service. So this is just, again, how did we get that service and the future service to Dulles? Having great relationships with our corporate travel partners, all the travel management companies. We meet, is it monthly that we meet travel advisory? Or is it quarterly? Quarterly.
And then I'm in their offices monthly.
Yeah, there you go. So we're in constant contact with them, acquiring all of their information, what are the business's travel trends, and putting that information to develop an air service story for our airlines. Not only our current carriers, but even for potential new carriers. Hence the gate expansion project, hence the need to be prepared for that future growth. Importantly, as well, in the second item there, again, we want to paint that picture with the new facility, with the gate project, with any acquisitions that they also have, not only on our side, but the corporations and the company sides. If you all, your businesses are new, or expanding, or being acquired, or growing, we want to know about that, because again, that makes a story for our air service in conjunction with what we're doing at the terminal. We have a great relationship with the United's network planning and sales team, and the example of getting the Newark, Dulles, and the Houston flights. We have a wonderful marketing team that does a phenomenal job of, again, pairing the information that we have with what the airline has in their possession to make a case for additional air service to particular destinations. And in this case, for Newark, soon to be Dulles and Houston have proven successful. And again, we can't stress enough as a team, it's not just for me, it's from the 48-member staff that we thank you all the companies represented here that do provide information, that do look to fly out of CAK. You do make a difference in our community. Ultimately, we're not just competing with Cleveland Hopkins, we're not competing with Columbus, we're not competing with Pittsburgh for that matter. We're competing with 500 or so other airports around the country. It's very easy for an airline to pick up an aircraft, pick up that commodity, that piece of equipment, and move it to Reno, Nevada, or Phoenix, Arizona. It's just that easy, because if there's a demand for an aircraft there, they're going to move it. You know, that's something that's prevalent now with regional airports like ours because of the 757 MAX issue with some of the airlines. So they're supplicating or supplanting, if you will, that service with smaller jets, regional jets that would normally service regional airports like ours. So equipment is an issue, equipment availability, this whole notion of a pilot shortage. There's an aircraft mechanic shortage. There's a statistic out there that over the next 20 years, in North America alone, there'll be a shortage of about 180,000 A&P, airframe and power plant mechanics. If you don't have mechanics, there won't be a need for pilots, right? So we need aircraft mechanics, we need folks in the trades, and working with Stark State College, working with Kent State and other higher education institutions to help provide the next level of training for PSA Airlines, which is the maintenance and repair organization for American Airlines, for example, is a possibility that we're working on. So again, we're competing with airports across the country for air service, and we have to do the best that we can to make that air service story palatable to the airlines. One thing that we're also working on at the state level, and Director Marchbanks and Administrator Bryant as well, more so that we've been in contact with about, is an air service development program. This image here shows that about 19 states have an air service development program, which means that either through their toll road collections, casino winnings, through some of their economic development boards. In the case of Indiana, Indianapolis is given millions of dollars to provide air service to Europe. South Bend, Indiana has been given a $1.5 million incentive over 2 years to fly to Dallas-Fort Worth direct. You know, besides Notre Dame, I don't know what else is in South Bend, but you know, it's a challenge for the state of Ohio because we have no such air service incentive. So what the airlines tend to look for are, A, make sure that there are butts in seats, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is there an incentive, a financial incentive for them to fly out of a particular area? So I mentioned on the previous slide, we're competing with 550 other airports. If we have states that are nearby, like Indiana, like Pennsylvania, through their casino winnings, also offers service from Pittsburgh direct to Europe, you're competing with service like that, offering these financial packages. It's very difficult for us, a commercial service airport, a regional airport, to compete with others nearby states that are offering such incentives in the millions of dollars. So we've been working with the state level folks, tried to get the House bill introduced for $15 million, which is a real modest number when you think about having 7 commercial service airports in the state, to attempt to establish this program moving forward into 2020 with the recent budget, but it did not make the 2-year budget plan. So we'll look to obviously reconvene and continue to fight that uphill battle at the state level, because we're at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to nearby states offering these huge incentives to airlines that again can move a piece of equipment from wherever they need to be profitable. So at the end of the day, we just ask that you check CAK every time you fly. And the travel, if you're traveling on business, let's say even to Chicago, to Charlotte, to Philadelphia, the airfare compared to a flight out of Hopkins may be $60 more expensive. It might be $100 more expensive. But the question to you all, and when I make presentations to other groups is, you know, are you willing to travel further? Are you willing to pay more for parking? Are you willing to stand longer on a TSA line? Are you willing to walk longer to your gate? Is it worth that extra $60 to $100? Or, and a stressful environment, obviously, even if you Uber or Lyft or use rideshare, or are you willing to pay a little bit more and have a stress-free environment where from the parking lot to the gate, you're there in 10 minutes, if that. So that's a question that we obviously pose to everyone in the audiences that I typically talk to. So what's more important to you, time, comfort, stress-free, or more of that stressful environment where you're saving maybe $100? Community must prove that we'll fly out of CAK, so it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? So in order for us to to grow, we have 11 nonstop destinations on that previous chart I showed, soon to be 12. In order for us to grow, we need you folks to fly out of CAK. You know, if you don't fly out of CAK, if folks continue to want to engage in that stressful environment to a Cleveland, to a Pittsburgh, to a Columbus, that's where the airlines are going to provide that aircraft. They're going to put that aircraft there. You know, people are willing to have a little more stressful environment. They may pay a little bit less. You know, people are, that's what the airlines look for, and that's where they'll put their equipment. So we must prove that folks will fly out of our airport. We need to prove that the current service, the current 11 nonstops will work. So ultimately, if folks are using our airport to travel to, let's say, Denver, ultimately, but they're flying through Chicago or they're flying through Houston to get to Denver, and that information is so important to us to show to the airlines that folks' ultimate destination is a Denver, is a Minneapolis, is a Dallas, for instance. That's an air service story we can make to the airlines to say, hey, if you flew direct, this is how many people can fill up that direct nonstop aircraft. The airplanes aren't filled, we don't get more. It's kind of pretty straightforward there. And then, again, as I mentioned earlier, if there are new businesses, if you're growing your businesses, if there are changes or updates, please share that with us, with our marketing team. Joyce is here as well. She can hand out some cards. She has a little booth set up over here as well. Be more than happy to take your information. We have a standard template that we send out requesting information from companies. Very basic, you know, where are you traveling to and from, what average airfare you pay, in essence, is what we're asking for. Are you stopping along the way? Very basic info. Please come up to us with updates if you have it. That's the story we want to build for the airlines. And that is it for me. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak. It was certainly a pleasure, and I'll open it up to any questions. Thank you.
One of the reasons to go to the airport is it's small and it's very enjoyable. But if you're successful in improving it and growing it and making it bigger, will it become unpleasant?
We don't think so. Again, we like to consider ourselves a small airport with big airport amenities. So expanding the project that we have now is right-sizing us for future growth. One of the conversations that we continue to have with a certain airline is if they grow, they may want to upgauge their aircraft. So instead of having a 50-seat regional jet, it will go up to a 76-seat, much more comfortable ride for you all. So having the spaces, having the gate spaces available for more people on those aircraft, making sure the restrooms are large enough, the corridors are wide enough, we need to prepare for that. And we are also having conversations with new upstart airlines. Has anyone heard of Moxy Airlines in the papers recently? M-O-X-Y? The guy that started that airline, his name is David Nealman, and he formed JetBlue Airways. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of JetBlue. Very successful airline here in the domestic US. I think they're looking to go international in the near future. So he started that airline, went down to Brazil, started an airline down there called Azul, very successful there as well. So now he's looking to come back into the US domestic market, and guess what? He wants to start servicing a regional airport like ours to other regional airports. He'll also fly to some main hub airports, but his goal is to fly out of airports like ours, and we need to be as technologically savvy as we possibly can, because he likes to consider himself, or his company, an IT company that happens to own an airline, as opposed to the other way around. So in terms of all the stations and the Wi-Fi and all the things that allow a company like that to be successful and be prepared, not only for our current carriers with larger aircraft, but new upstart airlines, we think we're right-sized for that opportunity.
Sounds like a lot of good things going on at CAK, and you know, appreciate that, and it sounds good. You'd mentioned PSA Airlines and a maintenance facility. Dayton International Airport was able to secure a deal with PSA to get a training facility down there to keep them as Ohio's only Ohio headquartered airline. Two-part question, I guess. One, anything on the horizon, maybe in terms of a training facility or partnering with maybe another one of your airlines at Akron-Canton to kind of keep them there as an anchor? And then number two, could you just spend a minute and what's how are your FBO is doing, and what's the general aviation outlook for CAK, and kind of, is that something the airport wants, or are you trying to divert that traffic to other smaller airports, and how does GA fit into your vision? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So regarding PSA, to answer your first question, yes, we are in conversations with PSA about growing their current operation at CAK at the airport. I alluded to earlier the conversation tied to what we're doing with Stark State about the workforce training. At the end of last year, we actually went to PSA with a proposal to either invest in their current facility, which is a 50-year-old building with a roof that's leaking and not structurally sound. Don't get me wrong, but it has some issues with it, or invest in a new facility. So they came to us with a certain size facility that broke the bank in essence, and the conversations ended there. But lately, within the last, and that was maybe about end of 18. So we reapproached them. Maybe we're in October now. I would say in August with a new proposal to see if what their future fleet sizes will be, which is they're looking if they can house 4 CRJ 900s, which is kind of the upper echelon of regional jets, for a right-sized facility of say 60,000 square feet, as opposed to the initial number of 100,000 square feet. That makes the number, the budget number, a lot more reasonable for everyone involved, including PSA. So we actually have a meeting with them next week about engaging that conversation, not only on the facility side, but more importantly on the workforce training side. I talked about the shortage of A&P mechanics. We need to continue to have that pipeline moving forward. To answer your second question on GA, the split today is about 65-35, maybe 70-30 commercial to GA traffic. We have McKinley Air, Aflight, Ultimate Jet Charters are there. We have a lot of small entities, Timken and Goodyear, and folks like that on the corporate side fly out as well. Again, it's all about being close and in proximity to the airport. We're working on a couple of projects now to improve some of the aprons areas there. We're looking to make it a little safer with our FAA partners as well. They're just as much invested in the facility as anyone. And if the Pro Football Hall of Fame Village takes off, you may have heard about that project. That will definitely turn the tables. We're not turning anyone away. We have enough capacity, especially on the south end. Our master plan calls for expanding our GA facilities to accommodate future growth from that end.
So I flew out of CAK.
Thank you.
And the red eye early in the morning, parked way out there, and the bus came. And that is great, because the guy driving, here's your location, keep this when you get back. And when I came back a week or two later, I didn't know where I parked that morning. But I had that ticket with a slot lot and everything, and he got right to the car. So that is a great service, parking down there and then getting into the terminal. AAA routed me through Cleveland when I went overseas. Do you talk with AAA and try to push using CAK here?
I'm gonna defer to Joyce because she's more in tune with the AAA and hospitality corporate travel partners. Joyce.
Good afternoon. I'm Joyce DeMio. I'm the Corporate Relations Manager for the Akron-Canton Airport. And yes, we talk not just to our corporate partners and corporate travel management and travel management companies, but we also talk to the travel agencies and AAA. We have established a relationship with them and suggested as they put together those packages. So oftentimes as they work with international vacation companies, they have contracts with them, which will have charter flights that we don't have access to because of customs and immigration's restrictions. But we are working very closely with all of the travel management companies and travel agencies to make sure that they also support the airport.
Thank you, Joyce. Any other questions, comments? Well, again, I want to thank you all for listening to the presentation and enjoy lunch. Thanks.